There's a common misconception out there that to be able to travel or live abroad, you have to have a lot of money. That used to be my belief as well, but I started traveling as a teenager while I was making just $7 per hour. And although I have a slightly bigger budget today, the high cost of living in the US lately, I've been thinking about other places I can go to save money. So in this video, I want to share with you my top places that I would live on $1,000 per month. And some of the countries on this list are actually 10 times less expensive than living in the United States. One of the first places that I would definitely look at if I had a budget of $1,000 per month is somewhere in Eastern Europe. A few years ago, I lived in Bulgaria and I was surprised that my rent was only around 200 to 400 euro per month, depending on what time of year I was there and how long I was staying. I had never been to Bulgaria before and I was shocked that something like having high-speed internet on my phone was only 5 or 10 euro per month compared to the $50 or $100 that I was paying in the US. Now, if you've never thought about going to Bulgaria before, then I definitely recommend that you at least give it a chance. It's one of those countries that has a little bit of everything. It has 4 seasons, it has cities, it has the beaches of the Black Sea, and it also has mountains that are amazing for hiking in the summer or skiing or snowboarding in the winter. I've been there in both the summer and the winter, and although it's different experiences, I really enjoyed it both times. So whatever you're looking for, you can probably find it in Bulgaria. When it comes to day-to-day life in Bulgaria, things are pretty easy. It's a developed country in Europe, the infrastructure is really good, you can drink the water, there's great restaurants, cafes, there's co-working spaces, and there's really fresh and local food.
Food Network, if you're watching this, come to Bulgaria, ASAP.
The grocery stores are actually very affordable. You can probably spend between $50 or $100 per week, but you can save even more if you do most of your shopping at outdoor markets, which is something that I love to do. Just go to the market once a week, spend maybe the equivalent of $20 or $30, and you're pretty much good to go, at least when it comes to your produce, cheeses, meats, and things like that. Something that shocked me about Bulgaria is that there's wild cherry, apple, peach, and plum trees just growing alongside the road. And as someone who grew up in the United States, that's not something that you see every day. So depending on the season, I was just constantly in awe of all of the different wild fruit trees that were in bloom, and it just adds to all of the allure of Bulgaria. Safety in Bulgaria is also pretty similar to the rest of Europe. If not, it could be even safer because it's not as touristy, so it doesn't attract as much of that petty crime. And there's also really strong expat communities in places like Sofia, the capital, but also Plovdiv and the small village of Bansko. So whether you want to live in a small village, a medium town, or a big city, you can find other foreigners and expats living there. On the downside, the language barrier can be an issue. At least I didn't dedicate the time necessary to learn much Bulgarian, and not that many people there speak English, although most of the younger generations do. So if you don't speak Bulgarian, then I still found it pretty easy to make friends there. I was able to date without any communication issues, although there are some cultural differences. It gets really cold in the winter, although that can be a pro or a con if you like to ski and snowboard. And also depending on where you're living, especially if you're outside of the bigger cities, it would be helpful to have a car, and so that would increase your monthly expenses a bit. When it comes to actually moving there, Bulgaria has a really straightforward residency option and also a 10% flat tax, so that keeps things really simple. Also really high on my list would be Serbia, another destination that I feel like is really overlooked. I really love the capital city of Belgrade, but to save money, I'd probably go to one of the smaller towns like Novi Sad or Niš. The people are so friendly in Serbia. The food is really good, so if you're a foodie, definitely look it up. And also, it's not in the Schengen zone, so if you're going as a tourist, you can stay for 90 days and it's not going to interfere with your Schengen travel days. Similar to Bulgaria, you can find an apartment to rent in Serbia for anywhere from 250 to 400 euro per month, and then your monthly utilities and expenses might be another 100 euro on top of that. Internet there is only going to run you around 15 or 20 euro per month, and food, like Bulgaria, is also very affordable. Private health insurance there should run you around $50 per month or less. The current exchange rate right now is around 108 Serbian dinar to $1 US, and it's been pretty consistent against the euro over the past few years, but historically, inflation has been an issue there. The biggest downside for me when it comes to Serbia is probably that it's difficult to learn the language. Also, it does get cold there in the winter, and it's a landlocked country, so if you want to be by the water, it might not be the best place for you. But that's why I also have Albania on my list, because it's still in the same region, has a really similar cost of living to Bulgaria and Serbia, but it's on the Adriatic coast. So you've got the beaches, you've got the sea, and you've got that nice Mediterranean climate and lifestyle. A great thing about Albania is that you can stay there for up to a year with just a passport, depending on which country you're from. So most countries will give you 30 days, 90 days, maybe 180 if you're lucky, but Albania is great because you can stay there for up to a year, and it's also easy to get their digital nomad visa. Where I would live in Albania, rather than going to the capital of Tirana, which can be a little bit pricier compared to some of the other towns, I would like to check out Saranda, where I know a lot of people who have lived there and they all really like it. It's right on the coast and you can easily keep your budget under $1,000 per month there. I do wonder if prices will go up in the near future because I've heard so much buzz about Albania and Saranda especially, but I looked online and you can still find apartments for 200 or 300 euro per month there. And if you can find places for that much online, then if you go there in person, you can probably get even better deals. Here's an example of an apartment that is listed at 350 euro per month, but you know it costs more because it's online with a big real estate agency. A downside of living in Albania is the language barrier if you don't learn the local language, but of course we can't expect everyone to speak English. Also, the infrastructure is not as good as some other countries in Europe, and flying in and out can also be maybe a little bit more expensive, have some longer flight times depending on where you live in Albania. If you're gonna be flying internationally, then you probably wanna go in and out of Tirana. Somewhere I haven't been yet, but it would be ideal if you have $1,000 per month budget, is Georgia. Not the state, but the country of Georgia, which is about 10% lower than living in Belgrade, Serbia, or 10 to 20% lower than Tirana, Albania. So you can save a lot of money by living here. It has super fast internet connectivity, and it's another one of those countries that offers a 1-year tourist visa. One of my friends, Mike, has lived there for the past 3 or 4 years, and he absolutely loves it there. He says it's a great balance, like work-life balance. He has made a lot of friends there. There's a lot of foreigners. He saves money, of course, and he said that the locals are really nice. And when he first got there at the airport, they actually gave him a bottle of Georgian wine when he came through immigration. So I've never heard of that happening anywhere, but I think it just hints to the attitude of the people there and how they are embracing tourism and international residents. Georgia also has their own version of a 1-year digital nomad visa, so that's another benefit as well. And if you're from the US or one of more than 70 countries, you can just go in with your passport visa free. Romania is another country that's high on my list because my grandfather's from there, but I haven't been there yet. So that is a country for another video, although many of the cities in Romania have ranked among the most affordable in Europe. So that's a bonus one for you to look up. Now, although I love Europe, I wouldn't want to spend all of my time there because it does get very cold and dark in the winter. So ideally, even if I'm living on $1,000 per month budget, I'd love to spend 6 months in Europe and then 6 months in Southeast Asia, for example. So if I were going to be living in Southeast Asia, I think that my #1 destination would be Thailand. Out of all of the places I've been in Thailand, I've traveled around from Phuket to Koh Phi Phi to Chiang Mai, and I would probably start with Koh Samui. That was my favorite place, and fortunately you can find a studio or 1 bedroom to rent there for between $300 and $400, maybe $500. Bangkok is great as well. Of course, there's so much to do there. It's a massive city, great restaurants, and I have a lot of friends there, but I do find it to be pretty hot in Bangkok, and also you don't get as much for your money. Like the rent can be slightly more expensive in Bangkok if you want a nice place. But Thailand in general, I don't think you can go wrong there. It's super safe with internet that's in the top fastest on the planet. I think the average is like 200, 250 megabits per second. And so it's great for remote work, but it's also great for relaxation, beautiful beaches, sunsets. I mean, it's just stunning. Also a very strong international community there, really easy to meet people, lots of events going on. So I would definitely add that to my list. Now, one of the downsides of living in Thailand is that they do have quite a short tourist visa on arrival of 30 days, but there are some options where you can get a visa for 60 days. There's also an education visa that a lot of people that I know have gotten from taking Thai language classes. There's the visa if you're doing Thai boxing. There's also a retirement visa. And they have the Thai privilege card, which used to be the Thai elite visa. Also, they have a new 10-year Thailand long-term visa. But the catch with those longer-term visas is that there is a cost associated with it. So you might not be able to afford those types of privilege or long-term visas if you're on a budget of $1,000 per month. But no matter where you choose, from the beaches to Bangkok to even up north, Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai, you can find a lot of expats and foreigners living there. You can have a very peaceful life, and I just love Thailand. Oh, one other thing though, if you are going to Chiang Mai, air pollution can be an issue. I have been there during the burning season before and it wasn't fun. So this is another reason why, depending on the time of year, the tourism, the climate, the pollution, I like to kind of spend part of the year in one place and part of the year in another. The next place on my list might sound a bit cliche, but Bali is one of my favorite places in the world. I first went there back in 2008, and although it's changed a lot, it's still a very beautiful, peaceful, and safe island where you can live comfortably for under $1,000 per month. When I first went there, I mostly hung out down south in the Bukit Peninsula and around Kuta, Seminyak, Canggu. But in recent years, it's gotten a lot more crowded there. So if I were to move there now, I'd probably go somewhere quieter. Maybe the east side, maybe Sanur, maybe up the northwest coast, past Balian Beach, Madawi, maybe inland. But you want to make sure wherever you're going in Bali, especially if you're going to the northern coast or a really rural area, that you can still get good internet service if you're going to be working online. But yeah, I would say the downsides of living in Bali right now are just the crowds, the traffic, the congestion, the tourism, trash, the pollution can be an issue. Nowhere is perfect. Everywhere has pros and cons. And Bali definitely has its share of challenges and growing pains. But it's a great place if you want to meet other foreigners. There's people of all ages and all countries living there. There's lots of meetups. There's lots of co-working spaces. Although I have heard that in the more popular cafes and restaurants sometimes, especially in Canggu, you might even have to wait in line. So that's a bit shocking. And that's why I'd go somewhere a little bit more remote and still be within maybe an hour of Canggu or Kuta to be able to attend those types of meetups and events. Around Bali, you can rent a room in a shared property for as low as $100 or $200 per month. And you can get your own furnished studio or one bedroom for anywhere from $300 to $600. You can really go big with some place that's like $800 a month, but we're trying to keep it under $1,000. And you can get a big plate of nasi goreng, fried rice for just a couple dollars, gado-gado salad, fruit salad, smoothies. Everything is just a couple of dollars each. And I remember going out to dinner and having like a 5-course meal, and it was $20 at the end. And I just thought, this is amazing. But another downside of living in Bali and also Thailand as well is the time zones. So that's one of the reasons that I don't live in Southeast Asia full time, even though you can save a lot of money there. So it is something to keep in mind. Also, living on an island, unless you live in Australia or Singapore or somewhere in Asia already, then flying home can mean a 17 to 24-hour flight, and also extra costs if you live in North America or Europe. And then like Thailand, Bali is another country that has a really short visa on arrival of 30 days, although they also have a new single entry tourist visa that you can extend for up to 180 days. And they have this Bali second home visa where you can stay for 10 years, but it's pretty expensive. And they also have a new remote work visa that has pretty reasonable income requirements where you can stay for up to a year. So there are quite a few options now compared to a few years ago. Latin America is definitely another region of the world to consider. I am fortunate to speak Spanish, so it would have to be high on my list. I'd probably go with Mexico first, even though I've lived in Costa Rica before and I've spent a lot of time in Panama. The cost of living in Mexico is a lot more affordable compared to Costa Rica, for example. It could be a half the cost or a third of the cost. And I think Mexico is one of my favorite countries. It's somewhere I've been traveling to since I was only 16 years old. And I've been all around from the East Coast to the West Coast through the center. And there's always something new to discover and explore there. Obviously, the food is great as well. And even in the pricier, more touristic areas like Playa del Carmen and Tulum, which it's gonna be a bit more difficult to live there on $1,000 per month, you can still find really affordable food. You can get 5 tacos for $2 or $3. And so really you can't go wrong anywhere in Mexico, but there are, some places that are more affordable than others. Some places to consider could be Rosarito in Baja California. Definitely can live there for under $1,000 per month, and then you're really close to San Diego. You want to hop over the border. But a downside to Rosarito is that you do need a car. Well, you don't need a car, but I find that it's a lot easier if you do have a car because the distances can be quite spread out along that coastal road. But the climate is good, the internet is good. Mexico City would probably be at the top of my list, but I do think it would be hard to find housing and keep your budget under $1,000 if you want to live in some of the nicer neighborhoods like Roma or Condesa. Puebla could be cool, but I would probably lean more towards a bigger city like Oaxaca. And then of course the Riviera Maya, Merida, anywhere on the coast would be great as well. Puerto Vallarta. Yeah, those would be some of the places I would look to first. Aguas Calientes in Central America was actually rated one of the most affordable cities in the country. And you can rent a 1-bedroom there from $169 to $384 per month and keep your cost of living around $800 per month. Mexico is also known for being a great medical tourism destination where you can get medical procedures for a fraction of the price of the United States, for example, and they also just have a really good healthcare system in general. You can go to the doctor, get a checkup for like $30 to $50, get a dental cleaning for $20 or $30, and I paid for a lot of stuff out of pocket there. You can also stay with your passport, depending on where you're from, for up to 180 days, which is pretty good. And there's no timeline to if you leave and come back, how long you have to wait to come back in. Although Mexico also has a really good temporary and permanent residency option that's pretty straightforward to get. But the only downside there is that, you do have to have some money in the bank to be able to qualify for that. A big downside to living in Mexico is the crime and the corruption, but although that is real and it affects a lot of people, locals and foreigners alike, I've been traveling to Mexico for decades all over the country, and I've never had any personal negative experiences with that. So even though I know it exists and there is a risk, I would still feel comfortable living there. In addition to Mexico, Argentina would also be at the top of my list. There are so many amazing cities to explore there, from Buenos Aires to Córdoba, Bariloche, Mar del Plata. You've got amazing food and culture, and the cost of living definitely under $1,000 per month. You can probably find housing even in Buenos Aires for less than $500 per month. And the longer you're there, the lower you can get your rent. So I know people spending even less than that, and you can save if you're sharing a place or if you're doing co-living. Technically, living in Buenos Aires is actually 10 to 20% lower than Tbilisi, Georgia, which we talked about earlier in the video. So you can definitely stretch your dollar there. Like Mexico, Argentina also has some political instability and crime, and inflation has long been a problem there. But inflation, unfortunately, it affects the locals more than foreigners. So if you're going there with foreign currency like dollars or euro, then you can actually save even more. Everyday costs are pretty reasonable there. I remember spending maybe $20 per month on internet, and going out for like a steak dinner with wine was anywhere from $8 to $15, and you can buy a nice bottle of wine for just a couple of dollars. Argentina has also been embracing foreigners. They have a Buenos Aires Digital Nomad Association. There's a digital nomad visa with pretty minimal income requirements, so they are really trying to encourage foreigners to move there, and yeah, it would definitely be a top choice for me. Another country that I haven't been to yet, but I would absolutely love to, and it's very close to Argentina, is Bolivia. And this is a country that one of my best friends actually lived there for a few years, and she absolutely raved about it. She said the people are so nice, it's so underrated. And the cost of living in La Paz, Bolivia, can actually be 40 to 50% less than living in Buenos Aires. So you can definitely save some money there. And it even can be 10 times cheaper than living in the United States. So even though I haven't been to Bolivia, I wanted to include that for you. Don't count it out. There's a growing expat community there. There's a lot of co-working spaces. You've got Selena there in La Paz, and it's definitely on my short list. Now, if none of the places in this video really resonated with you, or you want a few more ideas for where you can go, then make sure to watch this video next, where I break down the top 10 places in the world where you can live well for under $1,000. I'll see you there.